These Lane Kiffin comments about the Auburn-Oklahoma game are pretty interesting.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie 5.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie 5, and we are ready to get after it. Happy Wednesday. Lane Kiffin had some comments that I think are very interesting and open up a really deep conversation as far as what could be going wrong in the offense. We're going to talk about that. Could there be a shakeup at center even beyond Connor Lew's injury? We'll talk about that from practice yesterday. And then, I think people are wanting to know how Ashton Daniels looked yesterday, and we're going to talk about that as well. But before we do that, let's give a quick shout out to rowback.com. Use coupon code BARN20 to take 20% off your order. Polos, hoodies, pullovers, doesn't matter. They got it. And you can have even licensed Auburn apparel as well. So save big. Check them out. Show them some love. It's rowback.com. I got a clip I want to show everybody. This has been circulating, and there's been a wild array of conversations off of it, which is interesting. But I think there's a bigger conversation to be had. But I'm going to play the clip, and then we're going to talk about it.
When you look at the Auburn game, I told Hugh after the game watching it, you might want to switch the signals. Like, it looks like they have the plays. The middle safety's running down to steal slants, which is very abnormal.
It's funny that this is coming out now. I had a buddy of mine who's pretty close to the program, and he texted me after the game, and he said, I really think they had our signs, or something along those lines. Like, I think they had our signs. And I said, for a lot of the same reasons that Lane talked about, I think I may even mention this on the stream, it really looks like they know when we're going to throw like a slant or something across the middle, because they are almost waiting for it. They crash it at the very, very last minute, as if it was sort of like they were expecting it and they wanted to bait it at the very last minute. There's kind of a three-pronged conversation to be had here. Number one, there's a lot of folks that are like, how could you get your signals stolen? Like, how do you not know that your signals are stolen, kind of thing? And look, that happens. It happens all the time. Like, you obviously see that Lane Kiffin is concerned about Oklahoma having their signals. I think Auburn does do some rotation of maybe not necessarily changing their signals every week, but like how they deliver some of them in to the players. I think those change and rotate. I don't think it's very uncommon. Like, I don't think it's very uncommon that happens. You got to be able to adjust. You got to be able to change. And I'll say this: I don't feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't feel like there's been a similar game like that where it felt like they were jumping stuff anytime we wanted to throw like a quick slant or anything over the middle. I haven't really felt like that's been the case since then. So I don't think it's a scenario of our signs are out there, everybody knows them, and we don't know that everybody knows them, and they're just jumping all of our plays, because it doesn't really feel that way in game, because it honestly feels like there's plays to be made. Like, there's guys open at times. We drop passes, or we miss open guys, or we don't see open guys. Like, we miss the pass to them. We're inaccurate with the pass, or, we don't see them because of a pass rush situation, or we just miss them altogether, or we never get to them as far as our progressions go. The Oklahoma game was an interesting one. And I think I'm not sure. Now, this is my opinion, and go with me here. and I could talk to, I feel like I need to be having this conversation with like a Tyler Siskey or someone like that. But sometimes I wonder if a defensive coordinator is any good, okay? And he knows or can figure out by a formation, by personnel, or whatever we throw out, whatever we go out, put out there, if he can diagnose that Auburn's about to run some type of RPO, he's also probably good enough to know what are the options based off the formation, based off the look that they're giving. He should know the options that there's going to be. It's going to be a give. It can be a keep. It could be a slant. If there's no linebacker there, he should know what those options are as well. So if you can diagnose, and again, this is a theory, if you can diagnose when Auburn is going to run an RPO, okay, and then you're good enough, you're Brent Venables, you're good enough to know that he's got these 4 options off of this play that he can run. If you can take those 2 pieces of information, then could you not then – is bait the right word? Could you not formation? Could you not give them a look to bait them into one of the 4 options that you know can be run off of this play? So can you force Auburn to do what you want them to do off of an RPO if you're a good enough defensive coordinator? And then if you actually get them to do that particular thing, you heard him say it's very abnormal to see safeties crashing down on slants. Could that be what Oklahoma was doing there? Maybe from the signs, was it more they know the actual play, or they just know that this is a particular RPO tendency, a typical RPO formation, RPO situation, RPO personnel? Could it be that they identify when that goes out there? Then Brent Venables has been around football for a very long time. If I know that you're about to run an RPO, I know the options off of that. I can then, I guess in theory, you could manipulate them. Hey, I'm going to give you a pass front look. I'm going to give you the front that's going to make you want to throw it. And then I'm going to move the defender that you're reading out of the play so that you'll throw that ball, and then I'm going to crash it with another defender that typically is not going to be there. But like, again, kick back to what Lane says. It's very abnormal to see safeties crashing like that. I don't know if it was a sign thing. Like, I don't know if it's a sign thing. I think it's just really good defensive coordinators. If you're running an RPO and they can diagnose it. Now, maybe there's a sign out there. Maybe there's a tell that we have that signals that we're about to run an RPO. And if they catch that, that's really all they need. They don't have to know the routes and the blocking scheme and all this kind of thing. If they know it's an RPO, they know what options are that the play has based off of film study. In theory, could you not just bait, if you know that's about to be run, could you not just bait them into choosing the option that you want them to choose, and then you jump it? Sometimes I wonder about that. I may sound like a doofus, but it makes sense in my head logically. And I sometimes wonder that having an RPO as a philosophy, I guess, where you're running a lot of RPO plays versus having RPOs in your offense as like different packages or different plays. I mean, they run a ton of RPOs in the NFL. Like the Chiefs, the Eagles, they talked about how the Eagles added, I think it was the year they won the Super Bowl, 30 or 40% of their playbook was RPOs so that it helped Jalen make easier decisions. They do really well with it. I don't know exactly what percentage I've heard Tyler Siskey say that there's been times where it's almost like it's 90% RPO calls. I don't know that that's necessarily been the case at Auburn because honestly, I'm not smart enough to be able to track it like that. I'm not. I can't look at a play and know right off the bat if that was supposed to be an RPO. I would need somebody a little bit higher than me to be able to diagnose that. But sometimes it's something I wonder about. Let me know what you think. I'm not totally convinced that this signals got hacked and we don't know how to change them and it's a disaster and blah blah blah, all this kind of stuff. I don't necessarily know that that's the case. Sometimes I just wonder if smart, really good defensive coordinators can bait us into things. Who knows? Guys, we'll be back in just a second and we'll talk about practice from yesterday. There's a couple of things I think people are really interested in knowing about. And I think it was mostly what happens at center. What do the snaps look like? There were some high snaps in the game. Hugh mentioned trying a bunch of different folks out at center. So what's going on at center? And then obviously, how did Ashton Daniels look on top of, how does Jackson look as well? But one of the surprises right off of the bat to me was Darrell Robinson was essentially a full participant. He was in pads, he stretched, he ran drills, and looked to be pretty close to full speed. He didn't even have a non-contact jersey on. So in tune with that, it looked to me like Alvin Henderson had gone back to the scout team. So that tells me he's probably playing this weekend at some point in time, or he's available this weekend in some form or fashion, which I think is awesome. I love Omar, but man, we didn't get to see anything of Darrell Robinson. All we saw was him house one from 54 yards, albeit Ball State or whatever, 54 yards or 64 yards, however long it was. That's all we saw of him. And it's like, man, that looked good. I'd love to have a little bit more of that, especially with, Damari leaving the team and whatnot. So that's number one. That was right off the bat. I thought that was awesome to see him out there. It was much quicker than I expected. So good stuff there. As far as center goes, it looked like when they went to drills, like individual drills and team position drills, things like that, it looked like Kail was getting all the first team reps. So, and there were times when Ashton, they were rotating a little bit, but there was a lot of times when they were warming up that Ashton was warming up with Kail as his center. When they take some snaps under center to kind of get warmed up, he was working with Kail a lot. So I thought that was interesting. So they do a very up tempo period. It's probably the most fun period that we get to see. And essentially they're trying to run, I think, 5 or 6 plays as fast as they can down the field, just down the field. They do it with the ones on the ones, and then they do it with the twos on the twos. Now, when the ones went out there, I was kind of taken back because Mason Murphy was the first center that went out with the team. Jackson was first team quarterback. Mason Murphy was the first team center. And in doing that, they just put in Tutal, I believe, at the tackle spot. So I don't know if that necessarily means anything because it looked like Kail took every other rep other than this one period as the first center. But regardless, first team offense, Mason Murphy was the center when they went in. And there was at least 2 really, really bad snaps. One of them rolled back and Jackson got it out and got a 50-50 ball up to Perry Thompson, and it was spectacular. Made a spectacular catch. The other was a lower snap. It didn't roll, but it was really low, and they had to adjust, but it ended up being, a pretty good run. So he was a little shaky on his snaps from what I could see. And then the second team went in, and Kail was obviously the guy there. It was Kail and Ashton, and it looked like every snap was right on the money. Just boom, right there. I think that's one thing everybody was concerned about because, hey, you kind of, muffed up a third down run in the game because you snapped it too high and it screws up the timing and the momentum. And, obviously you got to clean that up, but he looked really good. He looked really good in that particular period. So that's as far as center goes. I don't think you're going with Mason Murphy at center. I don't exactly know why he went out there with the first team. I'm sure there's a really good reason, but it seems like Kail's going to be the guy, and he looked good from what I could see. So that's good stuff. Everybody was very, very interested to hear how Ashton looked and if he got more reps or with the first team. Could there be a change even to start the game? And again, I don't know that Tuesday is the final word, but from what I could see, there wasn't a ton more action than any other Tuesday. As far as what we get to see, he got the second team reps in that twos versus twos period. He got a lot of reps when they would go do the wide receiver versus DBs at the end of the practice period that we get to see. He got a lot of equal reps as Jackson. I thought he looked good at times. There's one thing about Ashton, excuse me, that I think he's going to have to work on, or he's going to have to realize, I guess. Everything is a fastball, it seems like. And it could just be that, in his defense, a lot of the throws that he was being asked to throw, minus maybe one of them in the 11 versus 11 period, all of those I think typically require a little bit more heat because it's like a stick route or a sit down route over the middle. So like you kind of gotta jet that in there. He can sling it, man. He's got a rifle. But like, for example, the first pass he threw was a little hitch, a little sit down route over the middle to Bryce Kane. And don't necessarily think it was a bad pass, but it was a pass that Bryce is a smaller guy. It was a pass that he couldn't quite handle, and he had a defensive back on him, and it ricocheted off of him and popped up in the air, and it was picked off. Now, am I saying that he should just have lobbed that one in there, or it should have been like a touch pass? That's not exactly what I'm saying, but there's a element of knowing how hard I got to juice it on a particular given play to not only get it there, but make sure that the guy can make a play. So that was an example. And then I think one of the last plays they ran, he was a little bit high on the pass. It was a comebacker to like Sam Turner. He was a little bit high, and it's coming in so hot that it's hard to get up there and get it. Like, it was very catchable. It wasn't like he had to jump his full extent of his ability as far as a vertical goes. He just had to go up above his head, but it was coming really, really hot, and it went through his hands. And he just has a very strong arm. And I don't know that maybe they're not 100% used to catching it from him or what, but it does feel like sometimes you got to have a little bit more touch. Touch is the word we're going for. You got to know how much you got to juice that thing versus when you got to take some off to give your guy a shot to make a play. Same thing on like a deep ball. Are you just dropping back and just ripping one down the field? Or are you trying to have a little bit of touch to make sure you put a little bit of air under it? You lead him a little bit here. You're not just throwing a laser in his direction, hoping that he makes a play. I think maybe I don't understand the right terminology to express what I'm trying to describe, but it makes sense in my head. Like, you just, when you're playing football, everything's not a rifle shot. You know what I mean? Got to have a little touch. And I think that's probably one of the, if you had to pick a weakness, that would be one of them. When they went to one-on-one drills, I mean, he can throw some lasers across the middle that are just on a rope. And guys were making really good plays. Preston Howard made a really good catch over the middle yesterday. That was a very high-level catch, believe it or not. and beat his guy. I think it was Jacquizz Robinson on that particular play, and Ashton threw it. So on the flip side, Jackson looked really good too. Like his 11 on 11 period with the ones, they ran their 5 or 6 plays. He had a couple of big completions and got the ball to Cam a couple of times. They had one batted down that I can't remember the defender, but it was to Singleton, and it just got batted down. But other than that, I think they completed everything else. So not a ton different from any other practice I've seen. So now I'm just talking about quarterback reps. I did feel like the energy was up yesterday. I noticed that they changed the way that they stretch, which I liked. They have the defense stretches all together as one whole unit. The offense typically likes to stretch in their positions. So like the running backs and the tight ends stretch together, and then the quarterbacks and the wide receivers stretch together, and then the offensive line stretches together. They were stretching as a unit yesterday, and that's the first time I've seen that. So that's like little things that maybe, hey, look, whatever they're doing over on that side of the ball, we need to be doing because it's working over there, and maybe we're not playing as a unit because we don't stretch as a unit, and we don't. Maybe we try to keep ourselves a little bit too separated. So we'll see if that yields any positive results this weekend. You got a really good opportunity against a very gettable defense. So we'll see what happens. Guys, let me know if you have any questions about anything in the comments. I really appreciate you guys listening. And we'll be back again soon. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.